Okay, so we are inside the structure, and this is where the Dutch hip was tied into the main structure
Right.
on the outside. So you can't see it as well, but what they did is they cut through the top plate there, and then they scabbed it back in.
Tied a little block onto the side of the siding there to hold up the top plates they cut all the way through.
And then in the corner there, you can't see it very well, but where the old structure meets
The new, there's no ties on the top plates. Yeah.
it's not tied together to the front of the structure anymore.
Nope.
And that's the problem that
That's minimum code.
they did with building the Dutch hip.
Yeah.
So, and it's on both sides. This side over here,
Very much easier to see.
you can it's a bigger problem.
More visible.
Well, yeah, more visible. So you can see they cut the top plate to bring in the 2x12s to the corner of the house, and didn't. What did you say they need? A leg bolts? Leg bolts?
Yeah, it should have been the ledger that's out here on the front of the house. Should have been lagged to the studs here, to the end of the gable.
Okay.
The gable should have been, the ledger should have been lagged to the gable and tripled up, and then
What's the ledger again for us
I'll
that
show
are?
you. Yeah, the ledger board is the board that's holding up the back of your trusses here for the hip.
So this right here,
Is a ledger. Yeah.
this is a ledger board, but according to the plans, they didn't even call for a ledger board there.
But I don't know how else you carry your side rails here for your.
How do you mean these things
You
right
either-
here?
Yeah, these are the ledgers. You either have a post back here in the corner, or you have a ledger board that is lagged to your structure, that is then lagged to these.
No.
Or
So when you
trussing.
say lagged, what is a lag? It's a bolt.
Lag bolts are a big threaded hex bolt
Okay.
that are screwed to the framing members of the house, which tie it structurally permanently together.
Okay.
And then it becomes load bearing
Mhm.
once it's lagged to the structure, and it will carry the end pieces that are then lagged to it.
So if they didn't have a lag there, now according to the plans,
Can't be butchered together in three pieces like that
Yeah.
and then be lagged together.
right?
That won't work.
So, and then the plans that we got from the truss company called for this Dutch hip to have, well, yeah, it called for the three
Three beams, yes.
beams together, and then to tie in
I
here.
think mostly the triple was an aesthetic issue
Okay.
because they were calling for the 6x6.
Mm-hmm.
So with the 6x6, the third beam would have covered the entire top of the post.
Oh yeah.
And then you would have had to have had the appropriate bracket to carry the triple
Mm-hmm.
joist or rim joist here.
And so
That's what that's called.
I'm
It's a
looking
rim
up at
joist.
this right here. In addition, you mentioned something about gluing these
Yeah, yeah.
pieces together.
You can't just shoot them together with nails because now the moisture has bowed them, and they're just going to spread apart. They're going to keep getting worse. They're going to keep crawling apart. They're all shot with smooth nails. There's not one sinker. There's not a glued nail in this. So
How can you tell there's not a glued nail in
why?
it?
Because they used the nail gun from here. They borrowed your nail gun to shoot those. These are
yeah?
the smooth. Yeah, these are the smooth nails that he's been framing. With.
Actually, no. I think this was gone. The nail gun. They didn't use our nail gun.
So this is theirs.
Yeah.
Well, it's very likely these are sinkers, but they didn't pull it together.
Yeah.
So.
And they didn't glue it, is what
No.
you're saying.
No, they're definitely not glued.
And so, right here, we have two boards coming together.
Right. And just dimensional lumber is typical that way, where you can see it lines up at the top, but it doesn't at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's not an issue.
Okay.
The problem is certainly aesthetics. You don't want to put it in a place where you're going to see it. So these joints can't be out floating in midair.
Yeah.
They have to be over a post.
Okay.
So when you cut these,
so here's another one here on this side
floating in midair,
that they put, and it's just what they did to fix it is just to nail them together.
right? No, you can't do that. They have to be, any joint like this has to be supported by framing members, right? By the structural members, by the posts.
And then over here again on the corner, if they would have done it properly when they brought it into the house, they would have had bolts that went through this into
this ledger.
the ledger.
I wouldn't call it a rim joist or ledger. This is what these are rim joists, and this is what carries the load above it. So if you build a deck or you build a roof.
Now, if they didn't have a ledger here, you mentioned something about
joist hangers.
Joist hangers. Is that an alternative that could have been done?
Absolutely. And I'm sure the plan called for joist hangers here versus the ledger.
Right. It did. It called for. It didn't have a ledger on the plan, but that would have created a.
But they were assuming there was somewhere to rest this end of this, rim joist on something in there, and they chose it to be the corner of your structure. So they cut the corner of your structure apart. That is now not held at the top plate anymore
By anything.
Well, not only that, they took the beams, the beam, which is the studs or the framing that was holding up where your top plates were holding the structure together, and cut those out, and they used it as a post to set these rim joists on, and they're holding all this together by nailing it. They've shot a few blocks.
So I'm looking at these structures here, and it looks like they've just, to attach it, they've just shot
sideways,
nails
through them into the
nails from each side, and kind of tried to get them as deep as they could, and it doesn't look like they have much connection because there's a gap of about a half an inch there between the whatever the supporting structure is and the siding.
There's no Ticos. If the wind gets underneath this, it's going up.
So
it's gonna lift it right off because there's no Tico nails. There's no joist hangers. There's nothing tying those down other than side nailing them, and that's not code. That's not even the minimum. You gotta have Tico nails. You gotta.
So when a structural inspector comes out here, he's gonna look at this and say, "Yeah, this is."
He's gonna laugh.
And so as I look through all these supporting structures, and I see gaps between the
top and the bottom,
the sideboard, and
that's because I bet if we put a level up underneath these, that they're running downhill towards the front E here,
right?
Because they're pulled away. This is running downhill this way.
Okay. So what you're saying is that
I'll grab a level. Yeah.